Welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I'm Cliffy D, and you can always find me on Twitter at Cliffy D.
And I'm Tim Capper. You can find me on Twitter at Repact. That's REPPACT. And this episode is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code FlightDeck-10 at checkout, you will save 10% off on your entire order. If you head over to www.sportbuffshop.com. Season started, buddy, but man.
Not quite the way we had hoped. But
No. By the way, first and foremost, thank you over to Reed over at the Markcast for hosting us for the entire 1 hour and 30 minutes of the pregame show. If you didn't watch us live, do so by heading over to over the Markcast over on YouTube. At the same time, make sure you do like our page, and so we can get to 100 people. What a show! But thanks again to Reed for having us there, because that was fun. I didn't know I didn't know I could talk live for 90 minutes.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Definitely a really cool experience. I hope he does that each and every week going forward, because I think it was great. I think it definitely generated a lot of interest. He even said that his listenership doubled as a result of having both Randy Ambrosi on earlier in the week for the actual Markcast show, and then having us join us for his pregame show. I mean, that's pretty cool. So if we played even just a minor role in that, then that's awesome. So, and apparently we got a few new followers as well as a result, so that's always appreciated. Yep. Welcome aboard, folks. We're excited as always to be able to present our thoughts, our analysis of the Alouettes, and this is great. This is just a great opportunity for everybody to get better, and I'm all for it.
Yeah. The game versus Calgary this week was fun. We'll be talking about that. We've got a couple of things to talk about the practice itself. We also got an interview this week where we're going to be previewing the Argos Alouettes matchup with Mike Mitchell from CFL. What is it?
News Hub.
Thank you. CFL News Hub. I was about to say XFL News Hub, but that isn't it.
It does right there too. But primarily we know him from CFL News Hub.
Yeah, exactly. But that, all that's to come. The game, though, it was a very exciting game. That's the first and foremost. I was happy that the game was exciting. It actually carried over quite a bit from what the preseason was throughout the entire CFL, where the scores were up. I think the scoring was actually up versus last year's week 1, which was a good thing to see. It does show that preseason actually does make a difference. But obviously, the Alouettes lost. They lost by 3. You could blame it on the blocked field goal. That's one thing we want to talk about coming up. You could talk about the injuries, which I'm sure played a huge part in it, because it basically has changed this team. Remember, I've always joked saying that a team is as good on paper. It can be as good as it can be. But once you get to the games themselves, and if these type of things do occur, well, that's where these teams change.
Yeah, it's funny. The Ottawa Redblacks, their slogan, their hashtag this year is "Flip the Script," and unfortunately, the script got flipped for the Alouettes this past Thursday against Calgary. It was a very hard-fought match. It was definitely the kind of match you come to expect from Montreal and Calgary, especially out in Calgary. Is these teams will it's like a heavyweight contest. Like, these guys will throw haymakers at each other, and there's no clear-cut winner usually. Usually, like, someone's got to just barely get that last shot in, and it literally took all 60 seconds to decide a winner in this game. That's what I love about it. I love the fact that this is a team in the Alouettes that didn't say die. They faced some adversity head on early on, and they powered through it. And yeah, it was not a perfect game. They made some mistakes, but they made some outstanding plays as well. I mean, this was as good a third preseason game as the first game of the season is usually considered. Yeah. As far as third preseason games go, this was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, and you said 60 seconds. Didn't you mean 60 minutes?
60 minutes, my bad.
That's okay, no worries. But the last 60 seconds was pretty eventful, though.
It truly was.
Yeah.
You talk about the clock management and just that intensity, knowing full well, like, you got to make a play happen here. And, like I said, Vernon Adams, give him all the credit in the world. He's had his ups and downs. He's had his hardships. He's He's been through it all, but man, there is just no quit in that guy. Like, he will give you a full 60 minutes of action. He will give you a full 60 minutes of intensity, of integrity. And
wait a minute, do you mean, did you say 60 minutes? 60 minutes?
60 minutes.
60 minutes. Oh, okay.
Yes.
60
this time,
minutes. Okay.
See, I learned. I grew.
Yeah.
I evolved.
Alouettes lose 30-27, but as I said, at a cost. Even before the first quarter, Mary Alfred, Greg Reed, and William Stanback, after having what at that point was a very good first half, all out with injuries, and it is carrying over to this week's game versus the Toronto Argonauts. So there are some changes, obviously, that we will be talking about. Mm-hmm. All in all, first with I saw when we know Greg Reed had been having some problems in camp. That we knew about, but we didn't. We really didn't. I'd have to go back again and watch the broadcast to see where I thought it occurred. And the thing with Super Mario is that we really don't know what it. They say it's an abdomen thing, but it's so vague. I guess it's meant to be, but I'm curious to know what it could be. I mean, if it's something, ruptured appendix or something of that sort or whatever, okay. But I don't remember seeing anything either. But obviously, the big thing was everybody saw it was William Stanback. And the injury, it looked bad to begin with, obviously, on television. I think we were I'm trying to remember who were we talking with a post-game and saying that he's never heard, William's not the type of player to really really scream when it comes to pain. And it was verbal that when this occurred.
It was Joshua Antwi.
Yes, that's correct.
Who give him full marks. He stepped up as the backup running back. He stepped in when Stanback got hurt, and he turned in a very solid performance.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, as of taping, on the Monday, Stanback has already had surgery on I think it's officially been called a fractured ankle. No timeline. Placed on the 6-game list today, along with Greg Reed, which to me is doubly hurts. Mm-hmm. But I think Stanback, we'll see what happens. I mean, Cliff, if a hyperbaric chamber can help Vernon Adams as much as it did this offseason to get him back into playing shape, makes you wonder if Stanback's going to be borrowing or maybe coming over to VA's place to borrow a few sessions in his tank.
It couldn't hurt. I mean, as you said, you see what has happened, like as far as recovery goes for Vernon Adams after his major injury, and it's kind of bittersweet to think about the fact that when we were at training camp, we saw Stanback off to the sidelines, and it looked like his ankle was taped up too. Yeah, so I mean, this couldn't have been a huge surprise, but at the same time, it doesn't make it any less easier knowing full well that he scored a touchdown in the game against Calgary, and I think, okay, great. Things are good. The offense is rolling. This is what we've come to expect.
And he was catching passes too, which I think is one thing that they centered on the broadcast about one of the things that he worked on the off season. And I will admit, I remember us last year talking about him out of the backfield. When it came to running backs out of the outfield catching the screen pass, we were saying that Stanback, when it came to that catching them, Stanback was one of the, at least last year, was one of the players that I think hurt the team the most when it came to that type of play, because the Owls their running backs have been known over their history they've been great out, not necessarily running up the middle, but also catching the screen passes. So it looked like he had improved a ton.
Yeah, I mean, blocking you didn't have to worry about with him. Running, obviously, I mean, he's like head and shoulders above a lot of people in this league, if not everybody. But yeah, the catching those passes, like those checkdowns and the quick dump offs. I mean, the first part of the season last year, he was just not having any of that, and it was just cringeworthy because Vernon would keep going to him as his checkdown, as the last resort. Yeah. I was like, please don't. And then we were always excited when he finally did actually catch a pass. It's like, excellent. I mean, yes, I know that's not his job. I know we're not paying him to do that, but nevertheless, I mean, like, there are times where you absolutely need your running back to be able to make a catch and even get like a 5-yard scamper downfield, if only to help keep the play going. So yeah, to see William Stanback be able to especially get a receiving touchdown right off the bat. Excellent news. Like, we were definitely happy about that. But at the end of the day, we come to the show to watch William Stanback run roughshod over people. That's what everybody knows Stanback for, and that's what everybody is coming to look for. Mm-hmm. And he damn near scored a touchdown too on the play where he got hurt. Like, he was just bowling people over. Like, this was the William Stanback we've come to expect. And then just, oh God, just watching his ankle go out from underneath him. Oh, not fun. Not fun. I think it was Jameer Thurman too that was kind of, or was Jameer Thurman? I think it was that kind of went low on him a little bit. I want to believe it wasn't intentional, but just watching Stanback just kind of crumple like that, and as soon as they bring the card out, things are not going to go well.
Right? Yeah, no kidding. And obviously too in that game too, we had I would consider a scare too when VA took a shot directly to the chin. And we talked to VA afterwards, and he was obviously not pleased about the hit itself. We were talking to him at practice.
Yeah.
On Sunday. He was not pleased with the hit himself. He did say, that even the next day he was just sore. They checked him to make sure that nothing was broken, everything was okay, and that's the main thing. But you could tell the first, because after that hit, I think VA scored on the hurdle. Since when are our players being known for track and field? Or what's even funnier? Because I don't know if you heard. I think it was on the Alouettes Instagram account during those two plays. I think it was specifically on the VA hurdle for a touchdown. You hear the I think I'm paraphrasing, but I think I'm pretty close to this. You hear the Calgary announcer go, "Vernon Adams steeplechases into the end zone." I'm thinking that's epic. But him and Gino
they got the hops.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I was like, wow. I think Gino said, we talked to Gino too, and he was like, Vernon's not going to get one up on me. I got to get one too.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a very, very friendly competition. But yeah, they that's the thing. They just bring out the best in each other in all facets of the game. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, VA's going to make a hurdle. Great. I'll make a hurdle too. I'm like, we haven't seen a Lewis hurdle since, Nick was playing, but
yeah, you're right.
Like, and in Calgary, no less. Like, this is it's just one of those full circle kind of moments. But yeah, I mean, you talk about the athleticism with these guys; it is phenomenal. Whether it's clearing hurdles or just breakneck speed from your running backs, like, my goodness, like there are some true horses on this team when it comes to athletics. It is so impressive to see.
Yeah, a lot of positives. 346 total net yards, 250 yards passing. We'll talk about VA in a couple of seconds here. Rushing yards, 140, most going to Joshua Antwi in relief of William Stanback. And one of the biggest pluses, Cliff, only 3 penalties for 30 yards. I was very pleased at that.
Yeah.
So it looks like something has changed from the preseason, which is good.
Now, I definitely think discipline it's been an issue for the past couple of years when it comes to the Alouettes, and I know the coaching staff gets blamed for that because at the end of the day, you got to be held accountable for your players. And I can't help but wonder if now the message is truly sinking in about being able to tighten things up and make sure that you mind your P's and Q's when you're out there. So it's refreshing to see. I mean, penalties are going to happen, but it's the number of stupid penalties that have gone down significantly. And even though it's just one game, I mean, a lot can change in the next game or two, but to see that right away was definitely a welcome relief. I mean, you saw penalties, but it seemed like it was all Calgary that was
Calgary had 10
shooting themselves in the foot.
10 for over 100. So
yeah,
so I'm happy. VA was 18 of 32, 56% completion percentage, 250 yards, 2 interceptions, 1 TD. And I think what got a lot of some talking heads concerned were the VA interceptions. First and foremost, VA looked a hell of a lot better than he did in the preseason game.
Oh, worlds better.
Yeah, no question. No question. And yes, his first interception was on his first or second pass. Okay, but that, if I'm not mistaken, again, I don't think it was all on VA. I think it was partially to blame on the wide receiver. The second one, though, to me, thrown into triple coverage, you're going to play with fire. You're sometimes going to get burned, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
But
this is what we come to expect from Vernon Adams. Yes, he makes the big plays happen. He is big play VA after all. But there are times where he makes mistakes. That's normal. Like when you're a gunslinger, like he is, you're bound to make the odd mistake here and there. And unfortunately, Adams is kind of in a position where I think a lot of people feel like he cannot make mistakes, and that's why when he does, God forbid the man should be human and make mistakes. It just seems to be at the most inopportune times. And it's, of course, going to be amplified big time by, as you said, the talking heads and the naysayers and what have yous, like the people that are just looking for any reason to bury a guy like Vernon Adams. Never mind the fact that he makes amazing plays happen. Never mind the fact that he's got the leadership skills that are second to none as far as I'm concerned, as well as the will to win. Does he always get the win? No, but you know what? He keeps fighting it until the very end. As I said, like he played all 60 minutes of this game. 100%. And unfortunately, there are some people who are just going to focus on the negative, focus on the fact that he did throw 2 interceptions. Whether, they're his fault or not is irrelevant. At the end of the day, it still shows that he did throw 2 picks in a losing effort. It sucks, but I sincerely hope that people see the bigger picture when it comes to him. And yeah, this is kind of what you have to put up with in order to have a quarterback of his caliber. Because when he's on fire, when he's winning football games, when he's making incredible plays, there's simply no one better than him when it comes to that. So you really truly do have to take the good one in the bad when it comes to Vernon Adams.
That's the facts of life. That's the facts of life. Sorry. The good thing that I loved about VA is how he was able to rebound. Yes, we understand he threw a pick when the Owls got the ball first in that first quarter. Yes, it cost them 7 points because Calgary drove down and scored a touchdown. But Cliff, it was how VA and the offense came out on their second drive and played as if nothing had ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sign of a quarterback that can put things behind them. Maybe, again, is it the number 3? Maybe. Has Vernon learned over the offseason? Maybe. But if VA had gone a 2-and-out in his first drive after Calgary had scored, I think there would have been a little bit to be concerned about.
Mm.
But he didn't. And that's a good sign of any pro quarterback.
Without question. He's learned. He's matured. He realizes what he has to do. He knows that he's in a fishbowl and that everybody is watching his every move. And I think there's a big part of him that welcomes that challenge. And he knows deep down what he has to do in order to become a success in this league. And he's willing to put the work in to do it. It's just, as I said, sometimes the execution sometimes isn't quite there, but the effort is unparalleled. I mean, there's no question. This is the guy that needs to be and is leading this team, good, bad, or other. And I don't see any of the other quarterbacks on this team with that kind of heart and that kind of determination. And to me, I think that's what's key. That's why this team is going to be successful, because Vernon won't have it any other way. Like, he prepares and he goes to work. And yeah, if he makes mistakes, he makes mistakes. As you said, he learns from them. He doesn't let them get in his head and affect the way he plays the rest of the game. Like, he's focused on winning. And that's what winners do, is they focus on winning, they put the work in, and eventually you'll get the results. Mm-hmm. That's how he's always done things. That's what made him such a successful quarterback in 2019. It was looking to be that same way in 2021 before he got hurt. And there's no doubt in my mind, like, once he gets it all figured out, he will be very much in this conversation as far as the Alouettes and success goes.
For sure. He targeted 9 different receivers. Leading receiver was Geno Lewis, 7 receptions. 7 targets, 4 receptions for 112 yards, including a nice 55-yarder and a hurdle. As I said, Joshua Antwi came in great in relief, 7 carries, 98 yards, and busted one. I thought he was gone. I think my wife was looking at me very strange because I was like, I swear he was gone. But he, I really did. Because I remember just yelling at the top of my head, he's gone! Well, I was wrong, but still.
But man, does he have wheels? I mean, we saw that in training camp, but to see it in an actual game situation, As we talked to him about the fact that he knows that stadium extremely well, as he used to play for the Calgary Dinos. So you knew, like, I think he was welcoming the opportunity to really show up and show out for his friends, his family, potential former teammates from the Dinos. Like he wanted to put a show on while he was out in Calgary, and I think he did a pretty good job, despite the fact that he was coming into relief. I mean, probably having to go in kind of cold, probably not expecting to get a whole lot of reps because, again, when you got William Stanback in your backfield, like, you're going to spend more time often than not, as second banana. But thrust into the number one role as he was, Joshua Antwi, he pulled it off, man. Like he looked fantastic, and like that's why I'm obviously concerned for Stanback. I'm obviously concerned for his health and making sure he recovers and all that. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for him to come back and be the dominant player that he was, you got a young man here from who just he just did a phenomenal job as far as I'm concerned, and I fully expect him to continue that pace. I fully expect him to realize his potential. I mean, he has come a long way from that unfortunate game versus the Ottawa Red Blacks last year.
Oh, for sure. Thoughts on the return game? It's funny, we didn't expect to see Tyson Philpott make his Alouettes debut as a returner, but he did, and he did a good job, I think. Doing returns. Basically, he did most of the returns after Alfred got hurt. I think he did a good job. Kickoff returns, averaging 31.5 yards. I know Darius Pickett had one himself, and Philpott had returned 5 punts. Good debut. Not where we expected him to do it, but a good debut nonetheless.
No, and it was kind of funny because I know like TSN was really hoping to see like his twin brother also in the lineup for Calgary to sort of play off the whole brother, sibling rivalry, if you will. But with Jalen Philpott being on the 1-game injured list for the Stampeders, it was pretty much Tyson's show all the way. And, we didn't even know what to expect, whether how much playing time he was actually going to get in Calgary, where, again, he knows that stadium also pretty well, having helped the Dinos get to and win a Vanier Cup. But yeah, I think it was a very nice debut for Tyson Philpott. And it was also really cool to see his dad in the stands wearing one of those like dual jerseys or shirts, like half Calgary, half Montreal.
Yep.
And let's not forget CFL legend Corey Philpott,
yes.
And the fact that but for that night he was just their dad, and it was kind of cool. It was really cool that the whole family showed up with Philpott shirts. Or jerseys, I guess you can call them, with Tyson's name on the back. And if Jalen was playing, he would have probably gotten some love too, no doubt. But again, it turned out to be the Tyson Philpott show without even trying. So props to him. Like he also too, his number was called and he was ready to go, which was great.
Yep. We can't forget about obviously Calgary. Bo Levi, 21 of 34, only 199 yards, 1 pick, 1 interception. Got hurt in the fourth. Jake Mayer came in relief. Was 4 of 5, 57 yards, and he's basically what helped set up the game-winning field goal.
He was like the Mariano Rivera of the Stampeders. Like he called in the closer, because as soon as I saw Bo Levi go down, like, oh crap, there goes the game, because I knew Jake Mayer was going to come in and he was going to find a way to help the Stampeders win.
Yeah. So. Leading receiver for the Calgary Stampeders was Richardson Danny, 7 receptions for 101 yards.
Another former Calgary Dino too. I mean, this was a great night. If you were an alumni of the Calgary Dinos, this was your night between Antwi, Philpott, and Sedani. Wow. I mean, this is just a great reminder of just how strong that University of Calgary program is.
Yeah, exactly. And leading rusher for the Stampeders was Kadeem Carey with 60 yards. Overall, Cliffy, for what you've seen, how in your opinion, how did the defense do? I mean, yes, we did lose Reed early on in the first half. But overall, it seemed to be that the defense it's kind of reminded me of the defense from what the last 2 seasons have been. Yeah,
there was a lot of bend but don't break. I think that the secondary, all things considered, played relatively well. Marc-Antoine Decoy, whew, that guy has got wheels, man, because he went toe to toe and broke up a potential touchdown pass. Like, my goodness, like the guy's got hops too. I mean, like, this guy, like, there's something about this team when it comes to speed. And normally they say speed kills, but in this instance, like, it was phenomenal. Linebacking core, I was very, very pleased with what they did. Defensive line looked really strong as well. Like, I say overall, this defense was pretty well on point. I mean, they got gassed a couple of times. But they didn't do anything stupid as far as I was concerned. Like, no stupid penalties, no bonehead moves.
One defensive penalty. One.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, Calgary had to work for all of their points. Like, I know they scored like 13 unanswered points in the second half, but, I mean, by and large, this defense held its own. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people were really truly expecting it, especially, too, once Greg Reed went down. Like, I won't say he's the heart and soul of this defense, but, I mean, he's definitely someone that is a game changer. We've known this for years. So it just meant other people had to step up, and that's what this game is all about, folks. I will say the one thing with Adarius Pickett, defensively, like, I love watching this guy play. He has come into his own. Because
he has an actual position.
There's that, too.
That's the thing, yeah.
And I think putting him at the linebacker position, much better. I also got to give him props as well, because at one point, Calgary was trying to draw Montreal offside, which is kind of puzzling when you think about it. But he was having none of that. Like, everybody just stood still, didn't flinch, didn't do anything stupid, and then just like mockingly, like a Bronx cheer practically right in Bo Levi's face, let him know, like, yeah, you're not going to get us like that, son. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that kind of gamesmanship. It's they say it's not bragging if you can back it up. And look, Montreal passed that test, and he let Bo Levi know, like, yeah, you're not going to get us like that, man. Nice try though. So I gotta give Adarius props for that. Like, that was really well done. I mean, overall defensively, yeah. They allowed more points than was scored, but, I mean, they can't control the scoring of points either. But, I mean, by and large, this defense played a very solid game against a very, very good team. Folks, if you're worried about this team's defense, don't be. It's going to be fine. I think the pieces are in place. I think there's a lot to be really happy about when it comes to this defensive unit, and I just think there's nowhere to go but up when it comes to what this defense can do. So I'm really excited to see over the next couple of games how they come together, and I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing some highlight reel plays from the defense as opposed to just the offense.
Sure. Lastly, before we get to our interview and start previewing the Argos matchup, concerns with how flat the Owls offense came out in the second half?
A bit, yeah. There's no question, because I think they tried to set the tone early, and I think for the most part they did. I'm always concerned when a team decides they feel like they can coast, and
which I don't think that was the case, by the way.
No, I don't think it was necessarily the case, but at the same time, like, they kind of let Calgary back in inadvertently. So again, this is why I say this is basically the third preseason game.
Yeah,
there's still little things that need to be worked on, little things here and there that need to be tweaked. And I really think that's really what it came down to. Like, I mean, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more firepower. And I even did say at halftime, like, yeah, you got some great momentum despite the fact that Stanback went down. It didn't seem to rattle the team too much. Like, they didn't pack it in. They didn't take the wind out of their sails. Like, they just plowed through and kept on going. It just felt it.
That's an interesting comment, which I'll continue, but that's an interesting comment you just made.
Okay. Like, to me, like, in the first part of the second half, like, they just seemed to kind of like content to coast, or at least it felt that way. Like, they did what they had to do, but at the same time, Calgary, you knew was going to come out. They had to have been embarrassed by what they saw in that first half, and you knew they were going to come out with piss and vinegar, and they were going to do what they had to do to score touchdowns. And I just think Montreal was kind of like, okay, well, we're good. We're still leading. And then you're like, leading by one. I'm like, okay, you're still leading, but you might want to do something about this here. You kind of let them back in. And I feel like you cannot give a team like Calgary any sort of leeway. You got to, like, put your foot on their throat and don't let up. And I think that's what happened with Montreal was they had their foot on the throat. They just kind of took it off, and can't do that against Calgary.
I asked Vernon point blank at practice. We were the last ones to see him after the whole Tellus jersey thing, which we'll talk about in the second half of the show. But I said, do you think the team's motivation or morale rather, was hurt by Stanback going down? And I think VA said, I'm paraphrasing, I think he said no doubt. Because obviously an integral part of the team goes down. Obviously it's next man up, but still it probably took a toll on the team coming out on the second half, which is a very genuine and fair answer.
And I think a lot of people would have even pardoned the Alouettes if they just kind of packed it in, because, as you said, this is one of their superstars. This is one of the guys that runs the engine. Like, this is one of the cogs in the engine that makes this team go. And then you lose him all of a sudden. And yeah, it'd be so easy for the team to just say, screw it. Okay, we're done. Good game, everybody, but we're finished. No Stanback, no win kind of thing. But they didn't. They really, truly didn't. Like, yeah, they were no doubt affected. But as you said, next man up, Joshua Antwi steps up and says, okay, I got this, guys. And sure enough, I mean, he filled in very nicely. And I think the team kind of responded to that. I think they kind of realized, okay, we're not dead yet. We're more than just an amazing running back. It's just a matter of it's all got to come together. Everybody's got to do their part in making this happen. And that's what this team does. I mean, you call it the cardiac kids, but man, they find ways to come back and make things interesting. And there's just no quit. And that's what I love more than anything else. There's no quit. There's no feeling sorry for yourself. Like they just put their noses to the grindstone and went to work, and they damn near pulled it off. I mean, you talk about the very last play, that prayer that Vernon threw up. Could you imagine, Tim, if somehow, some way, whether it was Reggie White Jr. or Gino, I think those were the two guys that were just in close proximity to that prayer being thrown up, if somehow they could have come down with it, holy crap, like everything would have been forgotten. Like, I mean, it just would have been, oh my God, Vernon Adams the greatest, the Alouettes are amazing, all that wonderful stuff. But instead it was just, I think a lot of people kind of looked at that last play like, okay, it didn't go quite as we hoped, but there was no quit. I mean, like any other quarterback probably would have taken a sack, and that would it just would have just been that last deflated balloon feeling. Yeah. But no, VA was not like that. There was no way in hell he was not going to be able to throw that pass. And he obviously has no control of who catches or doesn't catch the ball, but he can go to bed at night knowing, you know what, I did every possible thing I could to get that win. Mm-hmm. He just came up just a little short. Yeah. And it happens. And you can't be mad about that. No. It's just, it is what it is. And, I think this game is going to, when we look back at 2022, we're going to look at this game, I won't say necessarily as a pivotal moment, but kind of where, like, the foundation, if you will, of where the season's going to be, as far as, being dealt adversity, being dealt a tough hand, and how do you respond to it? How do your leaders step up when the chips are down? Yeah.
Next man up, right? Our next game. On to the next game, which is what we're going to do. Before we go to the interview with Mike, just want to remind everybody that we did launch our second giveaway of Alouettes tickets, second giveaway of the SportBuff flight crew seats for the upcoming home opener on June 23rd versus the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Check out all of our socials for the actual link through Facebook, Instagram, and or Twitter. It's over at Alouettes Flightdeck. Search on Facebook for Alouettes Flightdeck Pod and search for Alouettes Flightdeck on Instagram. The links are there. You have until Sunday at 11:59 Eastern to register. Again, these are a free pair of tickets to see the Alouettes home opener versus the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So again, we're going to be doing this for every home game this season, so stay tuned.
And if you guys aren't entering, then we have no choice but to believe that you've already bought tickets for the game. And if that's the case, great. But if you don't have your tickets for the home opener and you want to go see the Alouettes play against the Roughriders, no doubt. I mean, that's always going to be a fun matchup no matter what. And we're giving you a pair of tickets on the house. So head on over to our socials, head over to our links, and get yourself entered in this contest, folks. I mean, free tickets. I mean, it really doesn't get much better than that.
Exactly. As we mentioned at the top of the show, gentleman who's not been on the show before, but great conversationalist. We have Mike Mitchell from the CFL News Hub, and we're going to talk to him about the upcoming Argos matchup right now. Argos this week. We have a week up on them, but does that mean that the Alouettes are going to come out victorious? Well, it's something where we have to talk about. With us this week to talk about Al's Argos is Mike Mitchell from the CFL News Hub. Thanks for joining us, bud.
Thank you, Tim and Cliffy, for having me on. I appreciate it. Just don't kill me, okay? Just not literally, anyway.
It's literal.
It's just a
I'm sure I'll give you guys plenty of reasons to kill me, but but we'll see how this goes. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah. That's more of a Toronto guy thing because Gary Stearns, let's not forget, is a Toronto guy. We're very peaceful Montrealers, so we'll find other ways to kill you. Not to mention too, we just tell you in another language that we'd kill you. So
that sucks.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Big trouble.
If you happen to get a large order of poutine sent to your house there, Mike, just eat it. You don't have to worry about it. Just eat it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Boy.
Just eat it.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it.
It's pretty rough, but all right.
none of that Ontario poutine, that Quebec poutine. Yeah. So this is sort of a situation that the Alouettes were in last year. Because the Alouettes had a first week bye. The Argos are in the same situation this year. And it is something that I had brought up, and I'm curious to know your thought on it, is that, Argos are going to have a week's worth of film to use potentially to their advantage. The Alouettes will have absolutely nothing to base it off of other than, I guess, maybe stuff from last year, the playoffs, stuff that they used, when they played each other, but it's a completely different, every year, completely different team, so to speak.
No doubt about it. It's and the Argos, one thing about the Argos right now, they're very different from where they were last year. Like if you look at not just their roster, they're not they didn't rest on their laurels from last season. I mean, they got a completely different defense. They got Mickey Donovan now coordinating their special team. Mm-hmm. And Ryan Dinwiddie's talked about changing his offensive style to get back to his Calgary days of running the football more. Last year, the running game for the Argonauts was an afterthought. They used John White and DJ Foster more as pass receivers than anything else. So I think even if you were to try to go back to 2021, there are some aspects from Ryan Dinwiddie's offense that you can study. And obviously the Alouettes had success against Toronto in their last meeting at Molson. But I think Toronto's a lot different. What's kind of strange about this whole situation with the Argos bye week is I want to say it was beneficial for them because, they've been studying for Montreal for quite some time now. And I'm sure they've been studying up on Montreal's first game with Calgary. Yeah. But the Argos had a less than ideal bye week, so to speak, or week leading up to Thursday night's game because they were without their head coach, Ryan Dinwiddie, who contracted COVID. He couldn't show up at practices, so he had to do everything virtually, communicating with his staff, Pinball Clemens, everybody else. And they have several injuries to their team. Key guys, they're missing Chris Edwards, who was a CFL All-Star last year as a Sam, one of the best players at his respective position. He's suspended because of the craziness from the East Final. Peter Nicastro, who was All-CFL rookie as a center, was really a great draft pick by the Toronto organization. He's out. He's on the 6-game injured list. They're without Eric Rogers, Jawan Breskeson, Dejan Brissett. They're without Jamal Peters, the starting cornerback. They're starting 2 novices, basically, in their secondary, in Robert Priester and Tavares McFadden, who've never played a CFL regular season game. So it's Isaiah Cage, one of their more important players on their team. They didn't have him all of last season. He missed part of 2019. He's one of the better left tackles in the league. Unfortunately, he got a head injury, and he's not going to play on Thursday night. So they're moving Trayvon Tate over to left tackle, and they're going to have Dejan Allen playing on the right side, which is kind of a curious move. Allen was a very good CFL rookie last year, played the entire season at left tackle. So you would think that the Argos would be well rested, well prepared, but they've had some adversity going into their home opener, which they're feeling a lot of. The Argos organization's feeling, just like the Alouettes, are feeling a lot of pressure right now to get off to a good start. And the Argos, they've raised the stakes. The expectations are higher than they were last year. They kind of sort of came out of nowhere last year. This year, the target's on Toronto's back. And Toronto's expectation is Grey Cup or bust. So we'll see how it goes on Thursday night. It makes for an interesting atmosphere.
Do you think go back to the original question. Do you think it gives them though a touch bit of?
It does. It does in theory, but like I mentioned, all the hiccups that Toronto's had leading into it, it's been less than ideal. They have an advantage because they're at home. That helps. I don't know. I think the home team in this series has won 11 of the last 12 meetings. Last time a road team won was the Alouettes, and back in 2019 when they beat the Argos in the 6. So I do think that Toronto's had plenty of time to prepare for Montreal. They have an advantage there. But all the different hiccups and issues that they've had leading into this game kind of lessened, for lack of a better term, that particular advantage that you would normally have.
Yeah, Argos have the Alouettes have lost the last 5 of 6 in Toronto with that last one, as you said. Before that, the Alouettes had won 7 straight. So
that's true. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I mean, as you know, the Alouettes are not, they're not, they've been affected by the injury bug as much as everybody else, especially the Argos too. We lose our running back, a guy who very well could have run for 2,000 yards this year in William Stanback. We lose our defensive back, Greg Reed, who was a stalwart in the defense. We got new guys, that are going to step up for these guys. I think Najee Murray has come off the injured list, and he's going to be starting this week. We've had to sign some new running backs. We made a trade for a running back. So it's funny. It does, even though the Argos do sound like they have a lot more issues when it comes to the injuries, it's still big names too for the Alouettes that have gone down, and ones that are going to have to step up too. I mean, even our returner, the poor dude, Mary Alford. Super Mario down again with we still don't know what it is, an abdomen issue. So he's on the one game also.
Yeah, but there's no question Montreal's certainly gone through a lot of adversity. They're coming off a very tough loss in week 1. It wasn't a bad performance by any stretch of it. They were right in the thick of it. They could have very easily won that game. And so I thought it was a good showing by the Alouettes. They went through a lot of adversity. And yes, Montreal's been no stranger to the injured list. I think them and Toronto last year had the most players on their injured list. Toronto was ridiculous. They had to trade Nick Arbuckle away because they were going to in danger of going over the salary cap. So they traded him away from, ironically enough, second round pick and the rights to Chad Kelly. The reason why they made that particular deal, not just because they like Chad Kelly, was because they couldn't afford to add on any salary. So I know people make jokes about the Argos with the salary cap, but that's the reason why they made that trade. They had about I was a ridiculous amount of players on the injured list. I want to say it was over 24, and so maybe 27 thereabouts. So they had a lot of players on the injured list. So and Montreal's gone through it themselves. They had injuries kind of did them in late in the 2021 season, even though they made the playoffs. So yeah, we're in the same boat. Maybe not in the Argos boat, but we're in the same boat on that.
Yeah. Exactly. Cliff.
All right. The thing that really intrigues me with the Argos are the free agent acquisitions of both Brandon Banks and Andrew Harris. 2 guys who incidentally played against each other in last season's Grey Cup. How is that move? How are those 2 moves looked so far for Toronto as far as they're being able to integrate into the double blue?
The thing with Banks that he doesn't get a lot of credit for, that he's really shined with, at least during training camp. We'll see how he performs during the season. The jury's still out on whether or not he can be the same player he was. But Banks has really done a great job embracing the system, the offensive system, interacting with his teammates. He's shown a lot of leadership. Everybody knows about Andrew Harris. I mean, Andrew Harris is one of the most decorated players in Canada. He's a beloved figure. Big-time leader in the locker room. I think the Argos, we'll see what happens with Speedy B, but I think the Argos, that East final left a bitter taste, in their mouths. And they basically what they did was that they saw a Hamilton team who had 2 players, they're 2 of their best players, step up in the most important moment in Jagarrett Davis and Dane Evans. And the Argos didn't have those kind of clutch players. And so what they did was they took Jagarrett Davis away from Hamilton. And then here they are, they're bringing in Speedy B. They're kind of taking a roll of the dice there to make sure that he's, can get back to the player he was. He doesn't have to be the number 1 guy there because they have a lot of different weapons at receiver. But if he can recapture some of his past success or even close to it, that would be something for Toronto. Andrew Harris, they've brought him in. He's clutch too, and he's getting older. He's had injury issues, but last year when the Bombers needed him most against Saskatchewan in a tightly contested West final, he rushed for over 130 yards and a touchdown. they helped carry them to the Grey Cup, and then he was important, obviously, in the Grey Cup victory over Hamilton. So these star players, sometimes we've seen this in sports. You add star players at the end of their careers, and it looks great on paper, but it doesn't really work out the way you thought it would. So we'll see if that's the case here with the Argos. We'll see if Andrew Harris can, over an 18-game schedule at 35 years of age, play at the top elite level that he has his entire career. He's not only a runner, but a pass blocker and a pass catcher. And then we'll see what happens with Speedy B. And, Jagara Davis is one of the better pass rushers in the entire league, so I expect him to be good. But he's trying to go for a 6th straight Grey Cup appearance, which is crazy. But that's kind of the story there. Those guys are important for the Argos. I think they're not just add-ons. Toronto's expecting those guys to be leaders off and on the field.
Now, this defensive line for Toronto, they've got to be breathing a sigh of relief that they don't have to face William Stanback. When you look at these guys, especially the 2 defensive ends, and Shane Ray and Jagara Davis, like, what do they bring to this team that you won't find anywhere else?
Well, they're great. Jagara Davis is an interesting player. Both these guys played as stand-up edge linebackers in the NFL, so the stand-up rushers. So they can line up in different positions, and so they have that versatility, and they have multiple moves, pass rush moves. And Jagara Davis can beat you on the inside, power rush, or he can beat you on the outside. He's a fascinating player. And Shane Ray is somebody who hasn't quite lived up to the billing yet. Last summer, he looked like a terror in training camp, and then injuries kind of did him in, and he never really, stood up and played to the level or the promise that he showed during the early summer days. Sean Oakman is going to be playing right side by side with Jagara Davis on the Argos defensive line. He looked like a special player last year. Obviously, all CFL, made first team as a CFL rookie from America. Dominant force. So those two together on the same defensive line could cause a lot of problems for opposing teams. If they're healthy, I think the Argos have a chance to have one of the better. They have Corey Mace, who's the new defensive coordinator for Toronto, obviously former defensive lineman himself. He's got a history with Jagara Davis. The Argos lost in the sauce last year. The Argos were one of the worst teams at getting to the quarterback a season ago. They were second to last in the league in sacks. So I think that's about to change.
Wow. That would definitely be a game changer right there. And speaking of quarterbacks, McLeod Bethel Thompson, we've seen what he can do. He is definitely one of those guys that a lot of people seem to sort of, kind of pass on. It doesn't really capture a whole lot of imagination, but my God, he plays such a good game. Like, what is it about McLeod Bethel Thompson that just people don't seem to appreciate when it comes to the quarterback position?
This is the first time in his career that he's coming into a season as the unquestioned QB1 on his team. But McLeod's a lot like Vernon Adams and I want to say Jeremiah Masoli, in kind of a polarizing figure. There are moments where MBT is terrific. Against Hamilton last year on Thanksgiving, he threw for over 300 yards in the second half and led the Argos to an important victory in the Hammer. And then there are moments where McLeod Bethel Thompson will show you the other side, the flip side, where as he did against the Alouettes, where he threw for 0 majors and 4 interceptions and the Argos lost 37-16 to Montreal. So until McLeod Bethel Thompson avoids those types of games, he's always going to be seen as a stopgap guy. He's a credible CFL starter who's capable of having big games, and perhaps this opportunity that he's getting, he's going to finally get an opportunity to show that he can be an elite player. But he's one of those guys that, even amongst Toronto's fan base, where he's got a lot of doubters, and the only way to silence those doubters is for him to perform at a top level. McLeod's capable of it, but he needs to do it for an entire season. And so he's a very likable individual. His teammates love him. His coaches love him. He certainly has talent. There's no question about that. And the CFL game has slowed down for him. He's gotten better over time. But in order for Toronto to get to where they want to get to, McLeod's got to avoid those moments like he had in Molson last.
Wow. Tim, would you not say that these are a lot of the criticisms, if you will, about our quarterback, Vernon Adams? Like, would you not say there's a lot of parallels?
I was just about to say that it sounds very familiar, except we have a guy that goes by 2 other initials. So I'm guessing, looking at what VA... I understand he's going to get the knocks that he does, but I think that just people need to understand that guy, he wears the game on his sleeve. He's trying to impress everybody. He's trying to do everything that he can. But in all honesty, I think he showed signs of improvement in game one. The interception into triple coverage aside, he looked good. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of giving the quarterbacks the chance. And I don't know. I mean, do people look down on Macbeth just because he played a year in the spring league? I mean, he was with the Argos. I think he started with the Argos the year prior. Goes to the spring league. I think he just does okay, if I remember correctly, and he comes back to the Argos. I mean, why is Macbeth not getting the getting the props that he should?
It's funny. He's used to it. He's had the most unconventional career. Like even in college and in Sacramento State, he was a backup. So it's kind of funny. He wasn't like this highly touted guy, and he's had to work hard his entire pro career to try to make his way. And he's an epitome of a journeyman if you look at his resume and all that. And I think in the CFL, he's kind of been even disrespected by his own teams. Like, he led the CFL in majors in 2019. I know it was on a bad Argos team, so a lot of people would look at that and say, well, maybe he was padding his stats and all that. They had a bad defense, so he got an opportunity to throw a lot and all that. But McLeod has always had doubters. It's the problem with McLeod Bethel Thompson in a lot of ways with Vernon Adams, although they're two totally different players, is that he has those moments, like I mentioned in last year, where he threw 4 interceptions against Montreal. So McLeod's got to kind of get away from that. He's reached a point in his career where he's got to be more consistent. I think he's a quality CFL quarterback. The question with him is whether or not he can be elite. With Vernon Adams, it's a different story. I'm not trying to be negative towards McLeod, Bethel Thompson and all, but Vernon Adams, pound for pound, is arguably the most physically gifted and talented quarterback in Canada. And so I think the expectation level for him, because of his immense traits and talent, is for him to be the very best. So everyone wants to see that 2019 Vernon Adams when he had like 4,400 yards and whatever it was, 40 touchdowns or whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone wants that Vernon Adams. And the thing with him is, sometimes, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, that old cliche. Mm-hmm. When you're called big play VA, you're expected to make big plays. And so sometimes with that comes big mistakes. So it's the throw into to see if I can make this throw work into triple coverage. Or I've got a blitz coming to me. I'm not going to throw it at the ground of my receiver or at the ground here. I'm going to try to fit this in. So VA, sometimes everybody likes him personally. He's such a likable guy. He's exciting to watch. Anybody I talk to loves watching Vernon Adams. When he's on his game, he has very few peers. But I think sometimes that's the trade-off with Vernon Adams is he's capable of making big plays with his legs and his arm, and because he's capable of doing both, sometimes he puts himself in risky situations, throwing the football, and all quarterbacks make mistakes. There's no question about it. But I think that's the frustration, because Montreal. I was on the Marcast a couple weeks ago, and I talked about how scary Montreal is. That's how everybody looks at Montreal.
It's just, talking heads don't think the same, but then again, they're just talking heads. So
right. Well, it is but here's the thing, right? You look at their roster, right? I know every team in the CFL has elite players, but when you look at Vernon Adams, William Stanback, I know he's hurt now, and you look at Geno Lewis and Jake Wenicky, like those are 4 of the very best players in the entire league on offense. Like Stanback's arguably the best running back. Mm-hmm. Adams is arguably, and I think he is the best running back, but anyway, that's another story. But Vernon Adams, I think is the most talented quarterback. And then Wenicky, there are a lot of very good duos in the CFL, but Wenicky and Geno Lewis, that's as good as it gets. Yeah. So when you have those kind of players, the expectation is for you to be a championship contender. Montreal's got pretty good defense too. That gets overlooked because of all that star power. So I think that's the frustration right now with Montreal, is that the Alouettes haven't been able to soar from that middle of the pack area. And and I think Adams is being held to a high standard because of his talent. McLeod Bethel Thompson's like an underdog. On the flip side, he's kind of an underdog journeyman type who people doubt. Adams is somebody, the expectations are so high for him. Like people want him to reach a standard where he's near perfect. So he's still young enough where he can get there. But yeah, that's kind of the difference between the two, even though both are very polarizing figures.
Dan McLeod's been playing football since pro. He's been a pro since 2017. Since 2011. When he started,
2011.
Started off with the San Jose SaberCats at the Arena Football.
He's got a very close relationship with Jeremiah Masoli. I think I did an article about this last year. I put a picture up. It was him. They were with the San Francisco 49ers, and it was McLeod Bethel Thompson, Jeremiah Masoli, same camp, Alex Smith, and Colin Kaepernick. They were all all on the San Francisco 49ers, and it was a great picture of those four guys throwing passes in uniform together. Just fascinating. Alex Smith is beloved character, a player. Went through so much adversity in the NFL, ended up having a very good career. Colin Kaepernick, we know all the stuff with him, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of controversy and everything there. And then obviously McLeod and Masoli, they've had interesting journeys to get to the CFL and become what they are. So a lot. Those two are similar too. Masoli's another guy. Masoli's capable of shredding your defense for 400 yards, but he's also capable of giving you 3 or 4 interceptions, depending on which week you get him. And we've seen how he elevated Ottawa. So Ottawa's no pushover anymore. So it helps. I know Masoli has his fair share of haters, but Ottawa's got better quarterback play than it did a year ago. No disrespect to Duck Hodges or Evans or anybody else who played for Ottawa last season.
Oh, it's incredible. Like those three guys, Vernon Adams, MBT, and Masoli, are arguably 3 of the most polarizing quarterbacks in this league. You either love them or you hate them strictly because of the way they play this game. It's remarkable.
It's true. It's just kind of funny how they're all like in the same division there. And Dane Evans is like the clean cut, easy quarterback, simple. It's like, maybe some people he's middle of the road, nice player, nothing wrong with him, obviously. But yeah, it's kind of like he's kind of boring compared to those guys we just mentioned.
One of these things is not like the other.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, looking at the matchup, I mean, obviously injuries aside, obviously you write for the Argos. You're looking at all different aspects of the Argos when it comes to whichever opponent they're going to be playing this week. How do you see the Argos coming into this game versus the Alouettes? What do they need to do to beat Gary Stern's prediction promise
to avoid
and beat the Owls?
Yeah, in order to avoid getting killed, the Argos, it's going to be more than just, the Argos enthusiasts will say, well, just get Vernon Adams to make mistakes, right? I think the Argos are going to try to run the football. I think Andrew Harris, they're going to make a commitment to running the football, so they're going to try to run the ball. Kadeem Carey's a heck of a back. Calgary had some success there last week. Montreal's very creative on their defensive side of the ball. They ran a lot of fire zone blitzes. They like to confuse offensive lines and opposing offenses. Sometimes they can get caught on a couple of screen plays against the Stamps. That kind of turned out there. I think they need to pressure Vernon Adams. I think they need to win the war up front. I think they're going to need to do that on defensively as far as their pass rush goes, because the Argos have some issues at corner. And I fully expect Vernon Adams and Kari Jones to challenge Robert Priester, who's going to be playing at Sam in place of Chris Edwards, but to challenge Tavares McFadden and Robertson Daniel, who's a good CFL vet, but I think those guys are going to be challenged on the outside. And so the Argos pass rush is going to have to win. That's going to be important. There are going to be weeks where they do win because of the talent they have up front: Shane Ray, Garrett Davis, Sean Oakman, etc. So that's a big key for them on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, as far as the Argos go, the last time they played Montreal, they had their struggles passing the football. There's some issues on the Argos offensive line, so they're going to have to give McLeod Bethel Thompson time. The Argos are very deep at wide receiver. They may not have like a true number one, like a Geno Lewis or a Jake Wenicky type, but when you look at it, they have an emerging young star in Curly Gittins. Tavares Daniel's a very good receiver. They added Markeith Ambles and Brandon Banks, so they're pretty good at that position. They're going to be missing Eric Rogers, but they're pretty deep from 1 through 5. You could say 1 through 6 even. So I think that could be a challenge. I think Montreal, they had their moments. Montreal's defense, they've lost a couple of key players from last year, but they're still very strong, very underrated, overlooked. So you're going to have to be patient, and you're going to have to run the football, which I think you're going to see a lot from Toronto. They're going to, the game plan is going to be to try to pressure Vernon Adams into mistakes. And I think, and we'll see. if he gives you a couple. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I think it's going to be running the football, controlling the line of scrimmage. I think Toronto, in order for them to win, they're going to have to win at the line of scrimmage on the offensive line and on the defensive line with their pass rush.
Yeah, it's going to be a game that's played and no doubt won in the trenches.
Absolutely. And I think those are the big areas there for them. And Montreal's had some success. Like I said, it's kind of hard to pinpoint Toronto because, like I said, they're playing an entirely different defense, and they got a new special teams, and they're changing up their offensive philosophy somewhat. They brought in Pete Costanza from the Stamps to change up their passing game a little bit, and they didn't have Dinwiddie all this week. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of game plan they have against the Owls.
Now, it should be interesting too, considering that that the Argos are. I'm sure they are expecting to go up against William Stanback, but they're going to be, Joshua and Antwi is going to be the guy who's going to be staring at them over the offensive line. So it's it'll be
without Stanback, Toronto's happy to not see Stanback. That's for sure. But Nakari Jones, and Antwi obviously was terrific last week. Kind of lost in how unfortunate Stanback's injury was. Antwi was very good for them, and Montreal's offensive scheme is very good. Kari Jones runs a good offense, so he's always been a good play caller. So and they even had success. Nobody's William Stanback. We know that already. Can't lie to ourselves. But even last year with Cameron Artis-Payne had some success when Stanback was out. So that just goes to show you that Kari Jones's offensive system is a good one for the running game and for the pass game. So the Argos are certainly happy not to see Stanback after he rushed for over 200 yards against him last year.
Yeah,
so, that's nice for them. but still, and I know the Argos defense is going to be different. They're going to be playing with a 4-man front more often, and they're going to be playing a lot different than they did when they had Chris Jones as their defensive coordinator. Now with Corey Mace running things, so you're not quite getting the same defense as you did a year ago, but it's the same scheme that Montreal runs. So yeah. Nobody wants to play William Stanback, and hopefully he gets healthy. He's one of the better players in Canada, and it'd be great to see him back.
No question. So I'm not expecting a prediction out of you in regards to this game, but does this have the potential to be a blowout in either for either team, or do you see this being kind of like what Montreal Calgary was last week, a very tightly contested affair that pretty much came down to the last play of the game? This
could be a Boris Beatty kick at the end to either make or miss. Judging by what he did last year, it was a lot of make. So he had a tremendous season. I know you guys are familiar with Beatty, but I think Toronto. I'm tempted to call for an upset in this game because of all the different factors. I think Montreal's a very good team. I think there's a lot of they're kind of angry after week one. There's a lot of frustration. Mm-hmm. And so I think this game could go either way. I don't think either side's going to murder one another, as Gary Stern suggested, but I could see Toronto, just because they're home, edging this one out late, 26-24, something like that. But if Montreal wins, it would not surprise me whatsoever. I think they're good enough, they're capable enough. These teams are close enough talent-wise where that could very well be the case.
Yeah, they have the game 5 dimes as the game. Argos favored by 3.5, so they're getting that 3-point favorite for the home team. So,
right, and so it's pretty much even. And if you look at it, I think both teams have elite players on their roster. So both teams. So Toronto, there's a few unknowns with them because like I said, they have a little bit of a different defense. They're changing up their offense. They have a little bit of a different special teams. It's a talented, deep roster. No question about it. The Argos have a lot of strong Canadian talent on their roster. They've done a good job drafting guys. That's kind of overlooked when people kind of make fun of the Argos for, spending above the salary cap or spending too much money or hired guns. They overlook the Curly Gittins and the Castros and everybody else. So anyhow, but I think the two teams are equally matched. I think the East I think that the parity in the CFL overall is going to be interesting this year. I think teams like BC and Ottawa have come up, and it's going to be hard to make the playoffs. And I think because these teams are so competitive in the East and good. I think it's going to be it's going to be difficult for a team to run away with, say, 13 or 14 wins and win the division. You might be happy just to get to 9 or 10 just so you could get into the playoffs. So I think everybody's going to knock each other down a little bit of a peg, and I think that might be even the case a little bit in the West with BC showing up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. By the way, just out of curiosity, where did you have the Argos in the final standings?
At CFL News Hub, I actually picked the most boring Grey Cup prediction: Winnipeg over Montreal.
Ah.
So I took the Alouettes to get to the Grey Cup, and unfortunately, nobody wants to see it. Everybody's tired of the Bombers. I'm a huge O'Shea guy. Have been for a long time. Winnipeg finds a way to win. That's a measure of a champion. They do it sometimes in the ugliest of fashions. They are so well coached. They're fundamentally sound. Offense, defense, and special teams. So I know everybody believes that Winnipeg, they've had some losses and that they're going to fall by the wayside, and it's certainly possible. You got Saskatchewan at their heels for years now, trying to get over that hump. And so, but I had Winnipeg and Montreal in the final. I didn't know Stanback. I had Stanback as the league's MOP. I didn't know he would get hurt in week 1. But that was my prediction before the season started. I had Toronto winning 10 games, and at some. You look at their schedule and you say, wow, they got Ottawa 3 times and they play BC twice. But those, if you're just basing on 2021, that looks like 5 easy wins. But those teams are better. And then Hamilton is good. I know they didn't have a very good week 1, but although a lot of teams are going to struggle when they go play Saskatchewan at their place. So that's a good team, the Rough Riders. So, yeah, it's fascinating to me. We'll see how things shake out now. I think Toronto is definitely a contender to get back to the Grey Cup. And Hamilton, obviously, it's hard to get back there again and lose. That would be difficult for them. I don't know where Montreal's headed at this point, but I expect them to be a playoff team and to be a contender, even with the loss of Stanback. Hopefully he gets back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and obviously week 2 will show us a little bit more too. Things could change as we see in a heartbeat in the CFL, and it should, who's going to remember week 1? Well, maybe BC fans, considering, the record they scored for how many points they scored. But, hey, obviously it was cool having you on the show to talk about Owls, Argos. If anybody wants to follow you, Mike, where would they do so to read all your musings about the CFL?
You can follow me at BYMIKEMITCHELL. That's by Mike Mitchell. I write for CFLNewsHub.com, XFLNewsHub.com, USFLNewsHub.com. I also cover the New York Jets for the JetPress.com. So it's busy season. So just the way that I like it. So appreciate you guys having me on. I love talking the CFL, and this should be a fascinating game on Thursday night.
That's all we can ask for is just a good competitive match. That's all. So I've said before and I'll say it again. That's all I care about is just seeing a good, hard-played football game. And I got a feeling we're going to be seeing that. I got a feeling that the Alouettes, I think they're going to become the kings of Thursday night just by their gameplay, whether they win or lose. They could try to own Thursday nights for the CFL.
Yeah, I can see that. The Alouettes are an exciting team. It's going to be interesting, the fallout from Thursday night, because we're either looking at the Alouettes at 0-2 and people starting to question their leadership and where they're going to be headed for the rest of the season, or the Argos having their home party spoiled. And that would be a buzzkill for the Toronto fan base to lose their home opener and to fall to 0-1. Things can change in a heartbeat. The Alouettes have a tough schedule to start the season. The Argos have to go to BC, and then they play the Bombers and the Riders back-to-back games. So it's fun that we're in the thick of things right now, but things are going to get very interesting coming off of Thursday night's game. And yes, the Owls would be nobody would complain if they were on every Thursday night. That's for sure.
Well, we would. I hate Thursday night home games. Hate them with a passion. Hate them with a passion. I guess I'm kind of bitter when the Alouettes have had the most Thursday home games since they've returned in '96. So I'm pretty bitter.
Yeah, there's a reason. Not only is it a big city and Montreal is very supportive of the Alouettes, but they've had a lot of talented teams over the years. So yeah, it's and they have some very good players. So there's a reason why they're always featured. Why TSN always gravitates towards them.
Well, that's it. We're going to see some pretty entertaining football this coming Thursday, and I'm ready for it. Mike, thank you so much again for joining us here on the flight deck. Looking forward to a great match on Thursday, and like I said, let's see what the Argos can do. Let's see what the Alouettes can do. Let's see what Canadian football can do. Thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure.
Mike knows football, man. He knows his stuff. Not only CFL, XFL. The guy. It was nice to be able to chat with the guy. Again, somebody new that we've not had on the podcast before, but to talk to him, so much insight on what's coming up for not only this matchup versus the Argos, but also for the Argos themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you got yourself a good one there, Argos fans. I mean, Mike Mitchell definitely knows what the heck he's talking about. He backs it up and just brings the facts. That's what it comes down to. And I tell you what, folks, I mean, if you haven't already, follow him on Twitter. He's always tweeting out interesting stuff as far as not just Argos related stuff, but pretty much all facets of football. So, I mean, whether it's CFL, XFL, even NFL, Mike is the guy to go and just sit under his learning tree, because you'll learn some stuff. You'll get an education. So, I mean, Argos fans, as I said, you got a good one right there. Make sure you give him a follow, and we definitely appreciate him coming on to preview the matchup against the Argonauts. And as always, anytime you want to come back on the flight deck, chat some football, you know where to find us.
Exactly. Cliff, you mentioned it before for the interview. Only 17 people away from 100 on YouTube, so please, if you haven't already, please head over to YouTube, do a search for Alouettes Flightdeck, hit that subscribe button, and so we can get even closer to giving away that Delta jacket to any one of those 100 or more subscribers. Will be available when we finish up this giveaway, this long time giveaway. We want to give the thing to you guys. Come on.
Exactly. Tell a friend, tell a family member, tell your coworkers, tell everybody. Go there, smash that subscribe button. Let's get us over the century mark for subscribers, and get yourself some swag, man.
Yeah.
That's what they're beautiful jackets. Like, we each own one, and you can too, for free. So go subscribe if you haven't already.
Exactly. And speaking of free swag, you still have time, I think, to get some of our 2022 merchandise line for the Alouettes Flight Deck. If you head over to our store at teespring.com/stores/Owls Flight Deck, go ahead and grab something. We may have a new one coming down the pipe that completely surprised us. And I'm going to go ahead and mention it now, since we're moving into the next segment here, Cliff. If anybody happened to see on social media, Argo Fluffy on Twitter, the guy is rock solid coming up with an indigenous logo for the Alouettes. Rock solid.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you talk about fire. This thing is fire. Just absolutely beautiful. I mean, and perfect, because this is, this is National Indigenous Persons Month as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, absolutely perfect to, I'm kind of mad I didn't know about this sooner, because I definitely would have loved to have been able to get a T-shirt made with that logo and rock it to all the June games. I mean,
yeah,
my God. So yeah, folks, definitely go check out Argo Fluffy on Twitter. I know he does a lot. It's a lot of mostly Argo stuff that he does, Indigenous wise, but it looks like he's looking to branch out and try some other teams. I mean, if he does your team, and I think you'll be very, very impressed. Like, I came away just blown away by this Indigenous Alouettes logo. It looks amazing. If you haven't already, go check it out.
Now, this VA jersey swap was a little bit more than I think a lot of people may have known. The team had partnered with TELUS. That not only was there going to be a $5,000 donation, but I think for every jersey that was exchanged, there was going to be another $5 on top of every jersey. So TELUS was out there. Everything was set up. Practice was changed at within a day or so from being over at the Annex Field over at Olympic Stadium to Percival Molson Stadium. I think it actually worked out quite well, considering the weather that happened during practice. But first, just as I said, Cliff and I want to thank everybody that came up to us, that told us how they felt, that they listened to the show, and gave their 2 cents worth. Man, it was, we love talking to people who listen to the show, because as I said, it just shows that we're not just talking to ourselves.
It really does. And knowing that so many people within the organization love the podcast and listen religiously, it sounds like, is amazing. It does the heart good to know that, as you said, Tim, we're not talking to each other or talking to ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like, knowing that people truly are listening, and we definitely appreciate all the feedback, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. We want to know if there's ways we can do to improve the show. We obviously want to hear from you folks, and if we're doing a great job, then let us know as well, because we'll just keep on doing a great job.
Yeah,
That's all it comes down to.
And it's cool hearing that. It seems that quite a few people within the Alouettes organization do listen to us on a weekly basis. So our thanks to you guys, because again, it's great to hear feedback from everybody. It really, really is. I was also able to speak with Brian Waitman. Cliff, the Tackle Hunger game is going to be back. Pure Later Tackle Hunger will be returning to Montreal this season, and it's glad to see. I'm glad to see that that initiative to be back once again in Montreal. Yeah,
definitely. It's definitely one of those organizations that one of those events that I know fans really get excited about. And again, whether you're donating food, actual food items to the local food bank, or donating money also to the food bank, I mean, just a chance to go and see the Grey Cup, get your photo taken with it. There's usually a prize draw that's done as well. I mean, it's just a great effort. I know past couple of years, because of COVID, haven't been able to have an event like that. So knowing full well that it's back like it never left, it does the heart good. And it's definitely, encouraging to know that fans will be able to participate in stuff like this again. So yeah, if you're going to that game against Hamilton, folks, bring your wallet, bring your food,
take
bring
a picture
everything
with a Grey Cup.
There you go.
Which if I'm not mistaken, may actually be making a trip twice to Montreal, because we're having supposedly there are going to be trophies in house for the 20th anniversary of the Grey Cup champs.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, but the Tackle Hunger game is currently scheduled to be the September 23rd game versus the Tiger Cats, as Cliffy just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think before we can go quickly have our preview about Toronto, we need to talk about roster changes that were made because of what happened last week versus Calgary. And Cliff, I know you wanted to talk about it because it was just more than one player stepping up. It was the Alouettes really took they took the necessary means in order to get this team hopefully back to what they can be, even with these three players down for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're just not going to simply replace a William Stanback. You really, truly can't. But the Alouettes were certainly going to try. I mean, yes, you got Jeshuan Antwi. You know what he can do already, and now he's the featured tailback for this offense. You still got Takului on the practice roster. We talked about what he was able to do at camp, and that's definitely a viable option as well. But I think Danny Machocha wanted to just have that extra little bit of insurance policy, just in case something were to go wrong. So we learned on Sunday that Shane Simpson, who was on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers practice roster last year, and I believe he was also a member of camp as well for them, he's now a member of the Alouettes. So we thought, okay, great. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have that extra little bit of depth. We figured, okay, that's fine. We've got three very solid candidates as far as running back goes, and I think we'll be okay. But Danny Mac wasn't finished. No, he wanted to be doubly sure that things were going to be okay when it came to the running back position here. And he called up, I think, a guy that's becoming a good friend of the Alouettes, and Chris Jones. And he swung a deal with the Edmonton Elks, landing Walter Fletcher for a 6th-round draft pick in 2023. That is now the third deal the Alouettes have made with the Elks in the past calendar year, fourth in the past calendar year, that the Elks and the Alouettes have exchanged players and or draft picks. It's just crazy to think does Daddy know he can call other teams to make deals? But seems to I don't know if he's just whimsical for the fact that he was at one point the general manager and head coach for the Edmonton franchise. I don't know. Maybe that's the number he remembers the most easily, so he just calls them, see if Jonesy wants to make a deal, and I guess he does, because the Alouettes and Elks have now swung a couple of deals within the past couple of months. It's incredible, but and I'm very happy to have a Walter Fletcher in the lineup, because last year he was there wasn't a whole lot of standout players when it came to the Edmonton Elks for all the right reasons, but Walter Fletcher put in a very solid performance in his first year in Edmonton. got beat out this year. So, I mean, he was kind of on the outside looking in. So, I mean, this is kind of a win-win. Like, he comes to Montreal and can possibly reinvent himself if he can come and team up with Antwi and be that 1-2 punch that the Alouettes will need at running back. I mean, and all it's going to cost is a 6th-round draft pick. That's great. I mean, those are the kind of moves you want your general managers to make, folks. And, I'll give props to Danny Mac for doing that. I mean, just having that assurance that now we've got a very solid group at the running back position. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Joshua Antwi, he's going to be more than fine. Like, he's going to be the star of the show now. But knowing that you've got a Walter Fletcher, a Shane Simpson, Taku Lee, kind of waiting in the wings, just, staying ready when their number is called, it's not going to replace Stanback.
No.
And I don't think that's even the goal, is to try and replace Stanback. You simply cannot replace a generational talent like William Stanback. But just as far as keeping your head above water, like just trying to help stay the course until Stanback's able to return. And we are still hoping and praying that he will be back by the end of the season. But just in case not, this is not a bad running back group to look back on and kind of hang your hat on, if you will.
No. By the way, quick thoughts, speaking of Fletcher, and I can get, maybe it's because of the amount of time that, we picked. Simpson was a surprise attendee at practice on Sunday, because they announced it and he was already on the field.
Right.
So Simpson's been placed. He's on the practice roster, which I kind of get, because he wants to get, they want him to get used to the playbook, I would imagine.
Sure.
And I'm guessing this is because of when this trade occurred. But Walter Fletcher's been placed on the 1 game, which I didn't know until just checking.
Mm-hmm.
So he's on the 1 game injured list. Maybe it's because maybe he's not in town. That's you know what? That may be it too. But he's a part of the roster.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this before. Who's backing up Antwi?
Unless they feel confident enough in their fullbacks, Christophe Normand and Alexandre Gagné.
Maybe.
I mean, they don't necessarily have the explosive speed that Stanback or Antwi have, but I mean, they can run the rock too. Yeah. And either that or currently who will be returning kicks for the Alouettes against Toronto is Chandler Worthy and Warren Newman.
Yep.
Those are both very fast guys that can really run if need be. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a whole lot of jet sweeps, quite frankly. Maybe Ferdinand just dumps the ball off on these guys and let their legs do the talking.
Yeah. By the way, it was a little questionable when we saw it, but what's your thought of Antonio Simmons being placed on the practice roster? Because remember, at first we thought he was cut, but then there was some clarification and he's on the practice roster.
I guess probably as far as just trying to make space for guys like Simpson and eventually Fletcher. I mean, that's it's usually a lot of moving parts when it comes to that. I mean, it's a delicate balance, especially too, like there's no particular injuries or anything on the defensive line. And if you want to give guys like Brock Gowanlock a chance to get some actual reps in, I mean, like you really can't dress everybody. So,
right.
As it stands right now, there's no serious weakness as far as I'm concerned with this defensive line. So it's good to have an Antonio Simmons kind of in your back pocket. So it's just unfortunate now with the circumstances that have befallen the Alouettes when it comes to, the personnel on offense. Like I said, there's only X number of roster spots, all overall. So I mean, I guess he kind of just drew the short straw.
All right. Cameron Artis-Payne he's still on the roster on the suspended list. We don't know. We haven't heard anything much about him, whether it be in the media, TV, or in print.
I'm starting to wonder if maybe he's just. I guess part of it must have thought, okay, well, they got Stanback, they don't need me, and then now they're making moves to acquire these other running backs. Maybe he's just decided it's just not worth it to try to come up and compete in Canada, which would be unfortunate because he was definitely a very exciting player, but the only person who could truly answer that would be Cameron Artis-Payne.
Yeah. But I agree with you that I think that the organization has done what they need to do in order to replace these players, bringing Najee Murray off the 6th game. He's going to be playing this week.
Now, this is someone who I'm really excited to see back in an Alouettes uniform and back playing again, because last year he really stood out in the secondary. Like he was definitely a bona fide playmaker. Mm-hmm. And I was a little bit worried when I first saw him ending up on the 6-game list. I'm like, oh, geez, like what? Nothing too serious, I hope. And then lo and behold, he's been activated and then put on the roster. Like, oh, okay. This is great because, like I said, I've been wanting to see him. I've been wanting to see him in the lineup. He's definitely going to help the secondary now with Reed out due to injury. Watch for a guy like Najee Murray to come and really make an impact. Let's not forget the last time Najee Murray played against the Argonauts.
Right.
He scored a walk-off game winner, pick 6.
That's true.
You gotta wonder, like maybe he's got another one of those waiting in the wings. Just all he needs is the opportunity to get on the field and make something happen. So I sincerely hope so. I'm pulling for him.
Yeah, I know. What are your? I know we talked about we're talking about it with Mike before, but any last thoughts on the Toronto game coming up? By the way, I saw it on social. They didn't take the train. They actually flew to TO. I was like, oh, well, interesting.
Well, they got a plane. Why wouldn't they use it?
I know, but it's not like they can take the plane to Ottawa this year.
Why not?
But
listen, you got a plane. You may as well use it. So.
Oh yeah, I get it. But and
again, if they were going to be doing the fan train thing, which unfortunately doesn't look like they're doing this year, I mean, this wouldn't be the game to do it for. So I mean, I just don't. To me, I think you just, especially to a Thursday night game, I think you just want to be in and out, especially in and out of Toronto. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense to take the plane and just be done with it.
Yeah. Anything you're looking at any specifically for the Owls versus the Argos? I mean,
I just want to see Vernon learn from his mistakes and play the game that we expect him to play. And he's usually very good about that. He's been known for having these bounce back games, and he could very well have it against Toronto. Like last year against the Argos, he did not play a very good. Well, he was good in a lot of respects, but he also made a lot of dumb mistakes. And he even said himself, "I got to be better than that." And I'm kind of hoping he remembers that just a little bit, and it motivates him to want to play even harder and play the kind of game that we expect out of Vernon Adams Jr. To me, like that's going to be the key. Is how this team goes, how Vernon goes, is how this team will go. And I just see it coming together for him. I think he kind of realized, how he can play against Calgary. Like he knows that he can play in this league. Injury aside, all that mental aspect stuff. I mean, I think he's past that now. I think he realizes, okay, I can still put together a great game. I can still put together game-winning drives. This is just now the opportunity that I've been waiting for to prove to everybody that I can make things happen. To me, like that's what's going to be key Thursday night against the Argos is how is Vernon Adams going to engineer those drives? And if he gets down for whatever reason, how is he going to respond? Is he going to step up, or is he going to try too hard and make mistakes, or is he going to learn from the past and go forward in a much more positive and much more constructed way?
Yeah. In
order to score more points, in order to beat this team. And let's face it, the Argos, they're going to come out, they're going to be motivated. Like I know a lot of people were buying tickets for this game. I'm expecting a fairly decent turnout. Even by BMO Field standards, I'm expecting a pretty decent turnout. I think people want to be excited by this team. Like, there's a lot to be excited about with the Argos. I mean, they are a very solid team. Let's not forget, too, they were the kings of the East last year.
Yeah.
They hosted the Eastern Final. Like, this team has the potential to be a very exciting football team in the right opportunity, given the right opportunity. And I think Montreal realizes that, and they're going to play to that, and they're going to. I think they're going to really want to set the tone early, which like they did against Calgary. Like, just set the tone, but you got to maintain it. Like, you cannot put up 20 plus points and then coast the rest of the game. No. It just does not work that way. Like, you really truly have to pile on the points, pile on the hurt. You really just got to ram the ball down their throat and just make life miserable for McLeod Bethel Thompson. Like, you got to rattle his cage big time and just take everything away from him, take away his weapons. And I really think if Montreal can do that, if they can put together some game-winning drives, if Vernon Adams can step up and be that quarterback that we expect him to be, that he knows that he can be, there's absolutely no reason why the Alouettes can't come home with a 1-1 record and host the Saskatchewan Roughriders to what I have no doubt will be a very excited crowd at Percival Molson Stadium, ready to see these guys in action.
Yeah, for sure. VA is going. He's looking for his very first win in Toronto. VA has an overall 2-1 record versus the Argonauts. One game was played in Moncton. One game was played here in Montreal, and then last year in Toronto. So he's looking for his first ever win.
In the 6?
In the 6. So it's always been a very good rivalry between these teams, and I think VA needs to get off to a fast start. Let's work. I'm curious to see, because usually we hear that I mentioned it before, that usually the first 15 plays are usually scripted. I'm curious to see where they go with these 15 plays.
Hopefully the end zone.
Well, yes. But you know what I mean when it comes to
I do.
percentage-wise between pass plays and run plays. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm expecting all facets of the game to step up. I expect this defense to really make some noise. I really expect them to tighten up where they need to, because there's a couple times too where they were just kind of like a rudderless ship out there and just no direction at all. So I'm really hoping that they get that part nailed down and they just play the game that I know I expect them to play. And special teams, like this game, once again, like as we talked about with Mike, is that this game could go down to the wire again, like against Calgary. Like this could literally be decided by a last-minute field goal by either team. Like this, I'm not expecting a blowout from either team. Like I'm expecting another good, hotly contested match, and I fully expect both teams to play all 60 minutes, 100%.
Yep, should be fun. Yeah. So game will be on obviously on TSN, RDS, and local radio in French and English. So
and ESPN Plus for our American friends.
There you go. And we will be back next week to preview the home opener. We have a couple of ideas what we want to do for next show, but we're going to keep that a little bit of a secret. Again, just a reminder for those of you who do not currently have tickets for the home opener, we still have that contest where you can win a free pair of SportBuff flight crew seats. Just head over to our socials to get the link, and you can join in the contest for free. Very, very simple.
There you go. The price is right, folks.
That's right. So, Cliff, I will talk to you later, my friend, and we hope to have you, the fans, join us next week as we go over the Argos game and preview the 2022 home opener for the Montreal Alouettes. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.